All right. Are we recording now?
We're already recording.
Okay, cool.
Good morning.
Let's do it.
All right.
Hi.
Hello, Fermented folks. Thank you for tuning in to another week of Fermented Fiction, the podcast about beer, the podcast about genre fiction, the podcast that Travis can't wait to welcome you to.
Hi. Hello.
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 Well,
We're recording this live from Colin Poynton's attic space.
What's
and
up?
for Travis, that's a Colin Poynton's voice.
Hello.
And then we have Jeremy Hudson over here as well.
Yes, I have a voice too.
Star of
it
I
takes
Have
quite a bit
Notes.
of-
That's
Yeah.
I can't find the webcam
We
anymore.
really respect and thank the setup. It just takes a while, and then I get a little antsy, so I couldn't wait to say hi to everybody. But
Indeed.
he's done.
That's Colin.
yeah.
That's what he looks like from the side.
He's got quite the side profile.
And Brent.
My
Hey,
God.
well, he's fixing stuff. How about we do some life updates?
Is his audio better now?
I don't know. Yeah, what's your life
Blaring in
update?
your ears.
Was it blaring
I'll
in your-
try my life update. I think my audio's
Yeah.
better.
It's
My
fine.
life update. is
Yeah, I was
that
blaring in
the Eagle. Oh wait, we're not supposed to give timestamps, are we?
Yeah, be cool.
That's fine for this.
I mean-
this is going to be next week's episode.
At the time of this recording, the Eagles are in the Super Bowl. Go Birds!
Go birds.
If you're rooting for Kansas City and you listen to this podcast, I still love you.
I don't.
Please
Stop
keep listening.
listening.
We
Yeah.
might have to
You
bleep
hear
Super
that,
Bowl.
Dad? Travis still
birds.
loves
The
you,
big
but
game.
also go birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds!
Go Birds. Oh, yeah. Jeremy's dad is a Chiefs fan.
I know.
What
a guy.
bastard. Sleazy bastard. You can
Me
tell
or
him I
him?
said that.
Okay.
Him.
Okay.
No, I know. I mean, I think he'll appreciate it.
Yeah, sure.
Being called a sleazy bastard. That's the kind of thing that
What's your life?
Dan goes in for. What?
What's your life? Update? What's your life update?
Oh, I'm wearing my Summit Everett shirt. It's over here. I'm looking at the camera. Wearing my Summit Everett gear because I've just started the annual Summit Challenge. They pick a really big mountain somewhere in the world, and then they take its elevation. And the challenge is you try to climb to that elevation over the course of a month. So, like, this month it's Denali, and so that's like 20,000 feet. And every, like, top rope climb is like 26 feet. So, you know, you got to climb like 200 routes in a month, little more than that. But it's pretty fun. Yeah.
Nice.
So I'm taking that on this year. I haven't done it for a couple years, but it'll be a good time.
Kind
And,
of reminds me of the new app. There's a new app that came out where you like see how long it'll take you to walk to Mordor. Like record your steps.
That's pretty awesome. I wish I would have
Yeah.
took that when I was a merchandiser. I would have got to Mordor pretty fast.
Oh, yeah.
Fast. Got the ring there.
Hobbits do that.
Lickety split.
Would be slow this
Well-
time though. It would be slow now.
You brought us in with the intro, so I'll bring us into what we're talking about. How's
Hey,
that?
that sounds great.
Today we're going over Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the animated movie that came out in, I'm gonna guess, and I'm gonna have one of the people with a laptop correct me. I believe it was 2019. Am I wrong?
18, I think.
I'm
2018.
I'm a year off.
2018, yeah. December.
Came out in 2018. We'll talk about it. We'll see what our opinions are. I'm not going to give anything away. It is the story of not Peter Parker's Spider-Man. It is the animated story of Miles Morales, who is another Spider-Man in the Spider-Man universe.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a bunch of different Spider-Man in it from all the different kind of comic book iterations blended together. Some of the classic villains are in there. Doc Ock, Kingpin. Anyway, all of that. We'll talk about that. We'll roll some dice, Clay. Why are we rolling dice?
Well, we're rolling dice because this is first and foremost a debate show, wherein we roll these little d20s, and whoever gets the high roll has to defend the book or movie we're debating, whether they actually like it or not. And then whoever gets the low roll has to do the opposite of that, attack it, whether they like it or not. So we're going to roll to determine our rolls in this debate. And this game has been dubbed, if you will, Forced Entrollment by our good friend Philip Bridgers, longest time listener of the show. Thanks, Philip Bridgers, for being you. We're going to roll these dice for you now.
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks,
Roll
Phil.
Roll it.
For Philip.
Oh,
Maybe.
what a roll.
That's all I got for you, Philip.
That's all you've got
Cream and
for
wheat.
him. Okay.
Travis
What did you
looks
get?
like you might have less for Philip. I
did you get?
got a 6.
Oh, that's great. I got a 4.
Every time.
Now I see how you
Wow.
feel about Philip.
Wow.
Eventually, we're gonna have a supercut of every single roll.
Every
It's gonna
time,
be
Travis.
so
Shouldn't you
good.
roll-
So
I shouldn't
excited.
have rolled those 2 19s for the show.
No, you blew it, man. Okay, well, since that happened, Jeremy's going to set a little timer for us, and then I will start by defending this
All right.
film.
So, we got some entrollment talking about spiders, men, also a pig. In 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, we have touched gloves. Now I'm going to take those gloves off because I ain't even playing with anybody who's got anything bad to say about Into the Spider-Verse, because this movie was amazing. Going into it, you know how I feel about Marvel movies. So coming out hot like this is, it's pretty weird. I did not expect to really like it as much as I did. I didn't really know what to expect, in general, and I was like way off on what I thought this movie was going to be. But what it turned into was like just an amazing mashup of artistic creativity, storytelling, soundtrack. Everything in this movie came together beautifully to make just like the pinnacle of what I think an animation should be. I think a big problem with what a lot of the modern like superhero movies do that doesn't get me is they kind of like, I don't know, there's a formula, and most of them pretty much stick to the formula for the most part, unless they kind of go with a more satirical bent, but it's kind of one of the two. It's either satirical or it's dark. This movie I thought did a really good job, or it's like campy, I should say, but I'm leaving those completely out because I don't like them at all. I'm talking about the two kind of like are like satirical or dark. This is a really good like middle ground merging of those two concepts. They did satirize the genre, but they also did go pretty grim and pretty dark with it in certain points, and I thought it was a great merging of those two concepts that really made a very enjoyable superhero movie for me, where I usually don't like them. I think it also helps that it was an animation, because I do get tired of like green screen battles, so when it's an animation, it works a lot better for me for it to be a superhero. Like, I wouldn't really want to watch a live action Avatar The Last Airbender, but as a cartoon it worked. It's a better medium for that kind of story in my opinion. I have lots of other things to say, but I'll start with that. I thought it was a great combination of medium and storytelling style, directorial style, and everything kind of came together. It was a really, really fun movie to watch.
Right on. Well, I'll say first and foremost, I judge this based on it being a Spider-Man movie. So you pit it against the other Spider-Man movie. Pit it against the other Spider-Man movie, and here's where I think all of the worst Spider-Man movies are the ones that try and do too much, because that is a big point of Spider-Man's character in the comics, is that if you try and take him directly from the comics, he's always dealing with like multiple villains at one time, because he's Spider-Man. He's always trying to live a normal life, and something in every daily life task is interrupted by this villain or this street thug or something. The thing is, you can't really do that in film, in my opinion, because you have an hour and a half to 2.5 hours max to tell this story. You don't have a whole run of comics to do it. And this is where I think Into the Spider-Verse's main problem was. You have 5 Spider-Men. 6 if you include the first one that dies. Spoiler alert. But it's literally in the first 10 minutes of the movie. It's not a spoiler. So 6 if you include that first one. You have 4 villains. It just gets so convoluted, I don't know who to pay attention to. And in the midst of that, there's a bunch of like storylines that are almost to the point of what you're saying, of like dark, very well developed narratives. I wanted to see more, and then it goes to the next one. You know, you have the conflict. You have the conflict with the Uncle Aaron, who's I forget his villain name.
Prowler.
The
Prowler.
Both of those could have been a movie in themselves, but they divide them into 2 like little mini shorts and tried to stitch them together, and it didn't work. And then in the midst of all of that is the conflict with Kingpin, and I just had nothing to focus on. I felt like I had ADHD. Like I was like, oh yeah, I'm really getting into the Doc Ock story. Squirrel, Kingpin. Oh, squirrel! It's the Prowler. I didn't know what to do, and I mean, I am never going to lie and like make a criticism up out of thin air. What I will say is it's beautiful. It's a beautiful movie. I can't say it's not, but it's hard to appreciate the story and narrative when there's just too damn much going on.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess there were a lot of characters, that's for sure. But I didn't feel like they tried to like over-explain any of the characters. They sort of established that early in the movie, like, okay, let's do that again with this with this narrative view of like, okay, we all know the Spider-Man origin story. Let's skip past that part. And part of like starting the movie that way is embracing that idea. Like anyone going into the Spider-Verse, like you kind of are expected to understand what Spider-Man's story is already to some extent. And they sort of like told you that up front. And what you needed to know, they sort of abbreviated. And I feel like, for example, in the Spider-Man movies, they will usually like go into the backstory of one of the villains, if not 2 of them, if not 3 of them. And that can become a problem. But they didn't really do that in this. The villains were already fully established. If you didn't know exactly who they were from the comics, it didn't necessarily matter. Like, we didn't get a long diatribe about who Doc Ock was. We just, once we learned she was Doc Ock, it was like, hey, she's Doc Ock, like, figure it out. You could kind of tell that she's bad. If you can tell nothing else, like, I think you get the picture. Evil scientist with crazy, scary powers. But like most people watching Into the Spider-Verse, I assume, probably know Spider-Man enough that they just got to skip all the stuff they've seen a million times.
I think most of the people watching Into the Spider-Verse know Peter Parker's Spider-Man, but Miles Morales is a totally different Spider-Man.
Well, yeah, but that was the narrative that they focused on.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think it got well established enough. They took us on a narrative and said, oh, we can skip the origin story, but then they thrust us into the story of an entirely different kid. So, like, yeah, we know the Peter Parker origin story because he's been at the centerfold of Spider-Man in cinema since we were kids. Mm-hmm. We don't know Miles Morales unless you're a comic book fan. You know, you don't know that kid's story. And I think it's kind of it's a bit of an insult to him to give him that abridged 15-minute, this is Miles Morales, and then expect us to kind of buy into his story.
Well, I think the This Is Miles Morales portion of the movie was about an hour of like him in his childhood home, going to his school, moving schools, having a situation with his dad clearly having a relationship with his brother, him going to the uncle's house, and like clearly that's his real father figure kind of situation. Like there is a pretty well established backstory of Miles Morales. What we didn't need was the backstory of Peter Parker, was the backstory of Doc Ock, was the backstory of the Green Goblin, etc., and Kingpin. Like, so that's what I'm talking about that they skipped. I don't think they skipped Miles Morales at all. I think that was the first third of the movie, if not a little bit more. So it still was an origin story, but it was the one we hadn't heard before.
But it's also only in context of like Peter Parker showing up, which kind of, I don't know, that threw me off of like, you're going to tie this new story directly to the story we know, and you're going to, I don't know. I didn't like that Miles Morales sometimes seemed to play second fiddle to the Spider-Man that we already knew, even though it's his story that we're centralized or supposed to be central. And even at the same time, Gwen Stacy being the love interest, that's a whole nother Spider-Man story that you're throwing in there and tying it to Miles Morales for him to kind of also have to fight for screen time for the central character with not only Peter Parker, but also Gwen Stacy now, who's a well-known Spider-Man from another Peter Parker story. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't feel that way about it. I didn't ever feel like Miles was battling for screen time. I thought he was always
40 seconds.
He was always pretty clearly the primary protagonist. I didn't feel any kind of pull against that. If anything, the other Peter Parker, the older Peter Parker, was more of just like a, the classic unwilling mentor figure, who kind of was stuck dragging this new Spider-Man along. And we had the willing mentor, and as soon as he came up to Miles and was like, hey, I'll show you the ropes, I was like, well, that guy's gonna die. there's no way
10 seconds.
It's
Travis,
gonna be that easy. Travis, what do you got to say to that?
Yeah, what do you got?
What? How many seconds do we have? I don't know.
Well, less than
now.
10 now. I mean, probably
there's
not
one.
anymore. And now it's probably
There was too much here, Mr.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hope y'all audiences like that audio spike.
Yeah, I hope we all
Yeah.
we can all appreciate a
my
good
favorite.
audio spike.
All right. So now that we have thoroughly blown out your eardrums, we're going to add Jeremy
Hey, guys.
and Colin in.
Yeah.
Oh, hello.
Just make sure you don't forget to ask me what beer I'm drinking, because you've done that in the past.
Wow.
Hey,
Maybe you just want to lead off with what beer you're drinking?
yeah,
Is
do
that
you
what
want to
wanna
just
do? You can do
go
that.
for it?
Oh,
We
you want to know
can.
what beer I'm drinking? I'm
Hey,
so
yeah.
glad you
What
asked.
beer are
You can
drinking?
tell Colin's really interested because he's doing set deck right now.
Oh yeah.
Listen, I know that you guys are.
Oh, your shoulder's still in the way.
I know.
Jesus.
But
You're going to be drinking some fancy beer, but I'll tell you right now, it will not even come close to topping how wonderful and fancy Hams is, which I know Clayton had on the show while I was gone, and I just
did.
had to honor that. We're having some Hams tonight. It's an American classic.
I'm glad we've got a little bit of honor.
Yeah. It is an American classic. I enjoyed my hams, and I hope you enjoy yours as much as I did. We've got something quite different.
Ooh.
But first, I want to watch you chug that hams, because I'm really fascinated by your beer situation and what you've got going on beer-wise. Now, if you lived here in Washington, Travis, where would you have gone to get that wonderful beer?
I don't know. Do the special beers have hams?
Absolutely, that's where I got my delicious hams.
Yeah, bruh.
Yeah, bruh.
Hams for
All
days.
right.
Oh, that's
Cheers. You can see right through it. That means it's good.
It's already urine. Or at least close enough. Thank you, Special Brews, for
Travis,
sponsoring
man.
this podcast.
Travis, man. He couldn't kill the beer tonight.
what an absolute legend.
All
Come
right,
out his nose.
I'm gonna crack one of
Oh,
these
dear.
puppies.
Travis, tell us about your day.
A puppy.
I just want to hear the
My
audio.
day? Audio. Well,
Perfect.
I'll tell you about Hams. Hams is it's not bad. It tastes like water with a little bit of beer.
Yeah.
That's probably a fact.
Yeah,
When I say that things don't
That's how they
taste
make
bad,
it.
that's what I mean.
good.
Oh, you're still working on it.
What are you guys
yeah.
drinking?
All right, we went to Métier Brewing in honor of Black History Month, because this is one of two Black-owned breweries in the entire state of Washington, and one of maybe 400 in the whole country. There's really not very many of them. This particular brewery is really, really tasty, really, really awesome. Super nice people. Stopped by there today, sat in there for a couple hours, learned a little bit about the place. But yeah, they're the only one. They have been the only one in Washington for a very long time, and just recently another one opened down in Seattle. But yeah, Black History Month, we're honoring it. Here is our Metier Brewing, and we are going to drink one from them every episode this month. So this one today is the Horizon IPA. So thank you, Metier, for existing.
Thank you.
And for making this delicious, delicious beer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you heard that crack.
Click it. Is it Metier?
It might be Metier. I'm unsure.
Yeah.
The accent is actually over the
Told
E,
Metier.
so I don't know what that means.
Whatever that means.
I don't have any idea. Gonna be
So that means you gotta put the most emphasis on the final
it's their
syllable.
theme is German
Metier.
there. So if that leads you,
No, that confuses me more than anything.
that's
Get your French out of my German.
It's not Swiss.
It could be Swiss. It could be Swiss. Seem kind of German.
It smells hoppy.
Yes, this is
Ooh.
their IPA.
It's cloudy.
Hoppy.
Metier.
Cloudy
Bit. Yeah. See, we
I have to look at your.
don't have the clear. We don't have quite the clarity of the hams.
Cheers. Thank you,
Cheers.
Cascade Riders. Thank you, Special Brews. Thank you, Metier,
It's nicely lukewarm.
for making this beer
Thank you, Spider-Man.
to us. Thank you, Spider-Man. Yeah.
And Spider-Man. Spider people.
Thank you, Spider-Man, for
And
existing.
pigs.
Yes, and Spider
Spider
hams.
I get
And Nicholas Cage.
spices.
Yeah.
Orange zest.
It's almost like drinking a festive pie.
Okay.
That's a very,
And
very
we're sure
good
that's not because of your 24-ounce Starbucks coffee over there.
Jeez Louise, dude, it is 9 o'clock at night. You're sucking at
Look, you boys got wicked ADHD, all right?
Oh, man. Does that
The Addy peters out around 4 o'clock.
caffeine. Actually, if people have ADHD, caffeine is actually more of a downer than it is an upper.
Look, it does what it does. Okay, so like I can actually explain this.
Here we go.
Very good. So I take stimulants for my ADHD. It gives me the ability to do more things. So if I'm a car, Adderall makes the gas tank bigger. What caffeine does is it makes you use more gasoline at once. So,
Yeah.
you know,
So you kind of level out and then just die.
It's the nods.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it helps short term.
Okay.
And then you. So later, I'm just gonna.
Hit the nods, bro.
It's great. Yeah.
Travis knows about the
Jeremy's just in the car like Vin Diesel, like, you went too early, Stone.
I knew you were going to reference Fast and the Furious as soon as Nas came into the conversation.
It was just gonna happen.
Betty's gonna tune back in.
He had to, really.
Oh, there we
Had
go.
to.
We're good.
Yeah, we gotta snuggle up.
Okay.
So,
So we have done our beer of the week. Now we're going to move on to our final segment, which is just we've got 3 segments.
What about our-
actually? Yeah, we've
Whoa! Hit the brakes.
This is our next to penultimate segment.
next to penultimate segment. So
penultimate segment.
Colin, do you have
Fun facts.
Fun facts.
Fun fact.
Fun fact.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Shout out to Snow Isle Public Libraries, who I got that copy of Spider-Verse over there.
Beautiful.
There's a lot of great special features on that DVD, which I did watch.
There you go.
You'll want to.
And you'll want to, yeah, for a lot of reasons. So I have so many fun facts. One is that they essentially got every voice actor that was their first choice, they got.
Nice.
So if you thought that it had some great acting, which I did, and voice acting, and
Shout out to Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir.
yeah,
Is that who it was? Oh, that's
Yes.
hilarious. That's perfect.
so I mean, there's several comedians in it who I think killed it, both being funny and being serious when they had to be, and they just did an awesome job. So essentially, like, yeah, they got their first choice for everyone. The director.
You know who I think?
What?
Sorry. You know who I think like doesn't get the credit she deserves that just knocked it out of the park is Doc Ock as Catherine Hahn.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
She's awesome.
Yeah.
she killed it
And people
crushed it.
Anyway, sorry, Colin. Fun fact.
No, absolutely.
Fun.
And so they interviewed everybody. There's also, I noticed that as far as I could tell, everyone was that ethnicity. So if they played a black person, that was voiced by a black person. The Asian girl played by an Asian woman, Asian American. Same with the whole cast. So the cast is really representative. The script is really representative and diverse, and all the above. So I feel like that's another reason why the film is just so great. They also
They needed a gangster, so they got Schreiber.
Yeah.
Really representing the gangster.
They also
Beautiful.
Stan Lee was one of the producers of it. He passed away right before the film released. And so they did a big sort of in memoriam for him, as well as his artist who created Spider-Man. It was the two of them.
Steve
Ditko. So they were all about it. They were completely on board and super excited. They all had that input of the original creators of Spider-Man, and they were all in favor of it too. So it was a huge labor of love, and it seems like everybody loved it.
So before you say Stan Lee knew he was involved before it came out, so he was involved in the making. So did he know how he was going to be portrayed in this film? Because it was awesome.
I don't think
was
so.
incredible.
I don't think he was that hands-on. I think he was given a credit as a producer. And he was involved. I think it took quite a while from the script to the actual finished product. Took several years.
Right.
Which
Easily.
I still haven't answered the question of how Disney allowed Sony to make this. And I think it might be because they got an early start before Disney had fully acquired Marvel.
Interesting.
That's my theory.
I think too they allowed it because it kind of kicked off the whole, my theory, and this is probably incorrect, but my theory is that they saw Sony ready to make a multiverse movie and were like, let's see if this fails. And it succeeded, and they were like, okay, now we can move forward with our whole multiverse plan because we know people are in.
Yeah, and it was not small. So budget for the film was 90-something million, which is massive.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for a animated film, which actually tends to be pretty pricey. But it made at least 380 million.
Right on.
Yeah.
It should, because it was awesome.
Yeah. My guess, because of how Marvel works, is if it would have tanked, they would have completely changed their Phase 4 plan and not done multiverse.
Interesting.
Because that's literally, Marvel execs have literally admitted to they will plant Easter eggs in movies, and whichever one is most popular on Twitter, they plan their next movies for that.
Oh my god!
They just let the audience select their next scripts. That's how they work. It's insanely. It's
and it's definitely a film that I think does a good job at sort of being like a cult classic, having a feel of this is all very sort of spur of the moment kind of thing, but it's not. Everything, there's so many Easter eggs in that, and all of those spider characters have their own spin-off comic books now and toys and everything else. So there were definitely characters from this film that I was like, oh, now I get that meme that I've seen, and that costume, that cosplay I've seen. Now I get where it's all coming from. This is the first time I watched the film.
Gwen Stacy looks like an absolute G.
Oh yeah.
So White Spider-Man, so sick. as is Miles Morales Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So sick.
Absolutely.
Not to steal the fun fact spotlight, but Uncle Aaron is actually referenced in Spider-Man: Homecoming. Yeah,
he's played by Donald Glover.
He's played by Donald Glover. He's the one that gets trapped on the car.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Oh, my cousin,
I hope he does some.
My little nephew, Miles."
Yeah,
so he's referenced.
Interesting.
Yeah, Sony also I think has the rights to Spider-Man video games.
Yeah, they have all the rights to Spider-Man films and video games, although Disney does have rights to Spider-Man TV cartoons.
Interesting.
Which is weird. But the film rights do belong exclusively to Sony.
Also,
I love Doc Ock.
I can't forget to mention that there's an Easter egg on the DVD that is basically very important scenes for the movie, but all cut with farts.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Classic.
You'll want that.
All right, Trav. Before we get to you, we're gonna do Jeremy because he usually has some notes. Jeremy,
Penultimate.
what do you got?
Oh yeah, we got some notes here in my classic, not at all English. Well, it is English, but you wouldn't be able to read it
It's
right
Wingdings.
away. Well, I mean, it isn't not, but it isn't. So that's good.
It actually looks a lot better than Windings.
Thank
does.
you.
It's more
It's great.
thematic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, come on now. So, one of the things I've got here, what actually did I put? First note, and I'm glad this did come up. I'm surprised it didn't come up at all during the debate, is just Nicolas Cage. That's, the perfect get for Spider-Man Noir.
Absolutely.
The
Are we surprised he said yes, though?
No.
It's Nicolas Cage.
No.
like we could pitch him a movie tomorrow. He'll probably say yes. He's in incredible debt.
I think they should get
assume.
credit for using the right amount of Nick Cage.
it was
this
the
movie.
perfect amount. He got
Yeah,
like 8 lines.
not too much, not too little.
Let's 8 lines and then we'll call it a day.
Yeah.
We're gonna give Nick a Rubik's Cube and we're just gonna let him actually talk about it and see what happens.
Yeah. So the next note that I have here is that the movie is self-aware without being a dick about it. Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Like I always hate a movie where the whole thing about the movie is that it's self-aware. Deadpool gets to that point. Yeah, I want to say minimum a quarter of the time. Mm-hmm.
I would say way more than that. I would say that's Deadpool's entire deal.
That's a minimum. It depends on my mood. But yeah, I did because I'm glad they skipped most of the Peter Parker origin stories because we all know it.
We've seen it enough times.
Yeah, it's good. And now, what do I do? So one thing, the animation style, right? So when I first saw this in theaters, for the first 10 minutes or so, I was concerned that I had accidentally walked into a 3D showing because everything in the background was split and red and blue. And yeah. So, but then I just settled into it, that they were just emulating the feeling of offset printing. And so as things get further from the camera, they look like older and older comics, which is neat. Mm-hmm. That's pretty nifty right there. Another thing that they did while we're on the subject of the animation style is they did a lot of animating on the twos. If you notice the characters on screen being less fluid than you're used to, that's what they did. That's where they animate every other frame instead of every single frame sometimes. And they did that so that you could stop at any point in the movie and have just a perfect looking picture. Every single frame. Which is neat. I don't know.
That must not happen very often.
It's basically unheard of in 3D animation.
Yeah, 'cause I couldn't tell. That's really interesting you say that. I couldn't tell what it was about the movement of it that felt so different to me, but I definitely did notice that the movie kind of moved in its own way.
Yeah, it's
I thought that was
something
really
that's way more common in 2D animation because you're hand drawing every single frame. Mm-hmm. And to a certain extent, they did that with this too, just drawing over the 3D models to make them look good. Mm-hmm. Like Spider-Man Noir's coat was always drawn over in Prowler's cape, so that because capes sometimes look stupid.
Yep. they sure do.
And-
There's nothing blowing them around.
Exactly. So that's good. And then let's see. The whole. No, yeah, I think that's probably where I'll leave that because we covered all the other notes already. Just talking,
Okay.
palling around,
All right.
as it were. So yeah, that's good. That's all I've got for notes.
Boom. Travis,
Yeah, Trap.
you attacked, so what did you actually think?
Oh, I love this movie. I think it's. I'm gonna compare it to a show that you don't like, but I find to be one of the best shows on Netflix. It reminded me a lot of Arcane and why I like Arcane. And
Me
that
too.
being,
It
like,
reminded me of what Arcane didn't do well. Sorry, go on.
Can we not? Let me just talk.
Yeah. Put it away,
Because
Clay.
the two things I talk about loving about Arcane so much are it tells a story in a medium that couldn't be told in any other medium the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's themes in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse that I'm like, that would look like in live action, that would not work. Narratively, that wouldn't make sense in live action. The only way to get this exact feeling from this exact moment was to shoot it the way it was shot. And I think that's a beautiful thing, especially with animation. Most specifically, the leap of faith scene. Like when he
Oh yeah.
comes into this moment of like becoming Spider-Man, the background talk is happening. He jumps off the building. You get these like perspective shots. The camera's constantly rotating. Like maybe it could have been done in the live action, but it would have looked janky and probably not nearly as good in animation. It was gorgeous. And then what I really appreciated about it is in the midst of this like beautiful narrative moment that I'm like having these emotions for, I'm getting like goosebumps. You still get him like doing the web shooter with the thwop, like a comic book.
Yeah.
And it's not
That was
campy.
great.
It wasn't campy. It was like good. I was like, yes, that's me reading a comic and taking that seriously.
Yeah.
And they captured that in animation. And then the other thing I really love about it is, again, something I talk about with Arcane is it, like you argued, it uses tropes to benefit, which like tropes can be used for good, and this movie is a masterclass in that. It uses the tropes to just be like, hey, audience, we know you're intelligent people. We don't need to walk you through this entire story you've seen 1,000 times. Here's your villains. Here's your Peter Parker. Here's your Miles Morales. We're going to focus on him now. Everything around him is kind of a trope, but that's okay because it makes his story the center. And we don't have to like dedicate all this time to like the backstory of Doc Ock and Kingpin and the backstory of Peter Parker. Instead, you can get these complex stories around Miles because we understand the characters that he's interacting with already. And a movie that doesn't insult its audience is my favorite kind of movie. And my least favorite kind of movie is the opposite. I'm looking at you, Star Wars 9.
Very insulting Star Wars 9 was.
Thanks, Yoda.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Yoda. I agree definitely with what you're saying about it being in the perfect medium, and like all the stuff that Jeremy and Colin pointed out about the actual the production process goes a long way in talking about that too. Like I absolutely loved that ending. The entire ending sequence. It's been a long time since I watched like the credits of a movie all the way through, but like new funny art just kept popping up, like him giving a presentation on the Rubik's Cube to like a bunch of black and white people. And
So
then
good.
There was just like, and every aspect of that like denouement at the end was just absolutely gorgeous artwork, and they did so many cool things with this film. I mean, it was still Deus Ex Machina at the end, you know. That I guess that would have been like my main critique of it. Like, it did seem a little easy for everything to just go back to normal, but I get that's sort of like a comic book thing. So like I understand they're embracing the medium. But that was kind of my only critique of it, I guess, is like it did seem a little too easy for everything to just sort of work out at the end. But I guess, you know,
the last 10 minutes felt like, you know, let's wrap this up.
yeah. It was like, okay, we know everyone's going to go back to
Not because it was boring for me, but because the storyline was like hyper focused. That last 10 minutes on.
I do think that
up all the strings.
I mean, that's kind of what happens when you send, 5 Spider-Mans away, and then you're just left with a single Spider-Man.
Yeah, you got one left.
Things get a little focused.
I do think that's something that when I go into a movie that I know is specifically PG and is like marketed for kids, I don't expect an ending that's not Deus Ex Machina, wrap it up like with a nice bow. I was surprised at the beginning of this movie. I mean, I was like, this is pitched to kids, and like the first 10 minutes, you killed Peter Parker. Like that was intense, and I thought it was a really good tool because it was like, oh, yeah, we're going to get in some dark themes here, and here's your introduction to that. But it reminded me of some of my favorite animes, like animated movies, like How to Train Your Dragon does the same thing. Like it's a gorgeous, heartfelt story, and then at the end, it's like, but everything's okay. We're going to wrap it up, you know. I think that's just kind of kids' movies.
Yeah, I suppose.
But Gwen and Miles did not kiss.
Yeah,
Thought for sure that was going to happen.
That's true. I did not,
and I appreciate that.
kiss.
Yeah, you know, they're youngins. We don't need to see Spider-Man's making out until the sequel.
Yeah,
Till the sequel. Yeah.
Not all main characters that are male and female need to fall in love. Romantically.
What's your problem, Colin?
What do you have against love?
Yeah, why do you hate love so much over there?
Because that's like every Disney movie.
Oh, that.
Princess gets saved by the white knight who shows up to save her. You know what I mean?
He is actually black in this one.
That's true.
Well, he has white eyes.
Don't.
I think we can cut that one.
I think
we will cut that part out.
Moving
on. So, am I crazy, or did Gwen Stacy show up in the Miles Morales universe like a week before all the other Spider-Man?
Okay, I actually noticed something this time watching it, because like when first Peter Parker, who gets smashed to death, when he's giving his origin story, you actually see the particle accelerator in getting fired as a part of that story, where he's saying that, oh, I've been Spider-Man, saved the city a bunch of times. So my thinking is that first time that went off is when Gwen Stacy and the Spider show up. Because you see in her flashback, when she comes to town, there are 2 little things that fly out of the explosion, whereas when everybody else is telling their origin story, there's like 4 or 5 things popping out of the explosion. So it makes sense that is when she got there, because she'd been around for like a week, and that spider had to have come from somewhere. And it bit Miles, and it was from another universe before he even ran into the other Spider-Man, and they set off the particle accelerator for the first time that we see.
Interesting. Why would the spider wouldn't have to be from another universe, right? Couldn't that spider in theory still exist in this universe, because there's also Peter Parker?
But the thing is, it did that whole glitching thing that everybody else from the other universes did.
Oh, the spider did that. I don't remember that. Yeah. Or maybe I probably saw it, but didn't know what it was yet. That's interesting. It sounds like it warrants a rewatch.
Oh yeah, you'll want to.
Extra things. Yeah. Not that it would.
I think it definitely does.
Anyway.
No, great movie. I will shout out my friend Mickey. This is like his favorite movie. He's a listener. Shout out to you, Mickey.
Hi, Mickey.
I will say one thing. One thing about this movie that really sold it for me even more was the soundtrack. And I think you mentioned that in your argument. But it's such a well-done soundtrack. The Prowler theme.
That was
So
awesome.
good.
Yeah, just like synth, like heavy synth crashing. Like, yeah, I loved the soundtrack. I like the integration of like street art and hip hop into everything about the story too.
Oh yeah, it's Banks.
Yeah, it was awesome. Loved how the Spider-Man even looks like a spray painted spider. They really, I can't say that enough, but they really like, wove a web, if you will, of all the layers of this medium to make it a really, really cohesive movie. Yeah, it was very well realized from every aspect of production, I thought.
If you could remove Peter Porkins, would
Peter
you?
Porker.
Peter Porker.
Absolutely not.
I mean, I do think if any of the spider people had to go, he's the most
He'd be
disposable
first.
spider people.
Yeah. He's the most
He showed up and
disposable.
I was like, this is too
Bonkers.
much. This is too
Bonkers.
much. But
Yeah.
then at the very end, he has the line where he's like, still don't like cartoons or something like that. And that's pretty good.
Oh yeah.
At that point, I was like, all right, maybe I'm okay with it.
Colin, you teared up when he gave him the hammer. You don't even tell me. Don't even try to tell me you didn't.
Yeah, it fits in his pocket.
It does. Yeah.
No, there was another
I think
scene that was
I-
more
I will
emotional
get-
when he said something, but I forgot what it was.
Oh yeah, that's when he was like, yeah, you can't always save everybody.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yes.
I was afraid of Spider-Ham, not because he's Spider-Ham, but because he's voiced by John Mulaney.
That's why you dislike him?
That's why I would get rid of him. Like I didn't dislike Spider-Ham, but if there was any Spider-Man I'd get rid of, it'd be the one voiced by John Mulaney.
Okay.
look, you can't act
What
like
do you
John
got against
Mulaney
John
wasn't
Mulaney?
the perfect
I don't think he's funny.
choice. Oh, that'd do it, I guess. But you can't act like he's not the perfect choice to play Spider-Ham.
Yeah, maybe.
Who would you have cast as Spider-Ham
Yeah.
if you think John Mulaney sucks so much?
Seth Rogen.
Oh my god. Who is playing Donkey Kong, by the way, in the Mario movie.
Yeah,
Did you guys know that?
He is playing.
I mean, I guess I know that now.
Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. That's where we're at.
Okay.
I'm into it.
They got Chris Pine for Peter Parker. And oh man, let's talk about Jake Johnson as Peter B. Parker was awesome.
Oh yeah.
He did so good.
He did. Yeah.
I mean, he's basically just like if Nick Miller got bitten by a radioactive spider.
But I don't know. I thought he had a lot of really good nuance in his voice. Like I think he did give a legitimately good voice acting performance, especially at the end. His last line, a bit of a tear to my eye. Like, good going, kid. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
The voice actors definitely killed it because they changed the storyboards. They constantly change the storyboards. Most importantly, after they had actors do their first reading of the script, they changed stuff because they were like, "Oh, okay, maybe we should." So, for instance, his uncle's speech to him, death speech, that was extended and added to
Spoiler alert.
just a bit. Like
That's-
one.
That's why it'll make you cry so hard.
But I mean, it's a Spider-Man movie. The uncle always dies.
Yeah, if you're an uncle, you're not gonna do well if
You don't
If
want
your
to
nephew's
be
a Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's uncle.
no.
There's just something about the butterfly effect there. If a radioactive spider bites your nephew, f***ing watch
Look
it.
at it.
That's gonna come knocking.
Although I didn't understand why he was a villain. I didn't get that part.
Oh,
The Prowler?
Yeah.
I mean,
he was like
When did he become the Prowler and why?
beforehand off screen. I don't know.
well,
Money.
whenever the
More money, I
dad
do
and he
believe.
stopped getting along,
Yeah.
it's clearly why they went their separate
I-
ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an implied backstory.
Okay, so it's not
Look.
there.
Yeah, they just
It's not in
didn't
the
tell
movie.
you what it
They don't
is.
tell you it. Yeah,
Look, they just
they didn't have time to do that. I like that.
I think one of the campiest performances, but it was still glorious, was the fact that I feel like the directors just pulled the Leaf driver aside and were like, "Hey, you know you're from Boston, right? Yeah, just be the most Boston you can for Kingpin, Spider-Man."
Oh yeah, apparently he stuffed tissues up his nose.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Hilarious. I love how they're like in the vent and Peter Parker's like, oh, this is classic Kingpin stuff. He's about to say you have like one
You've got
week or
24.
something.
Yeah. You have 24 hours.
Listen, he's
You've
about to
got
be like,
24 hours.
Got 24 hours.
It doesn't even
Told
say
you.
what for. Yeah. I mean, there's some questionable things, you know, that kind of just go along with a goofy animation like this. Like, for example, could you have a less practical haircut than Doc Ock's haircut, which is like hippie dreadlocks, if you were a scientist?
Yeah.
I think that would be...
You'd be hard pressed to find
In
one.
a lab.
You would.
Where
I
you're
don't
dealing
think
with like
there's a hairnet
sensitive
that can
electronics and
control that
you
thing.
don't wear a hairnet.
Well,
Yeah.
look, it's what you get when you hire someone to do mad science. You're not going to get a sensible haircut. You know, not every Doc Ock's going to be rocking a bowl cut. Okay,
I guess. Lex Luthor, very sensible.
very sensible haircut.
Very sensible also.
And he's not even doing science most of the time. He's just being a rich.
That's true. Is Lex Luthor technically a scientist? I always thought he kind of was,
Yeah.
but maybe
I mean,
he's a scientist
he
in the way that, like,
does, but,
Bezos
like,
is a scientist.
I think he is
Or
a
that
little
Elon
bit.
Musk is a scientist.
Yeah, I think he's more in that. But I guess he also
Paid for the fast track.
does. I mean, he did build himself some super armor at some point. I don't think he could have given that to an intern. Depending on how good his interns are, I don't know.
Have to be a hell of an intern. That guy's a hell of an intern. What movie is that from?
Hell of an
Hell of an
intern.
intern. Oh, it's not from a movie. It is from Supernatural. It's the episode where they are on a film set.
Beautiful.
It'd be all right with me if I didn't know that. But I do.
Yeah.
There's a hell of an intern.
Guy's a hell of an intern. Or it's hell of a PA, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about.
Luckily, you're rightly ashamed for knowing that.
Absolutely. Let's all be clear. Shame is deserved. James.
Shame.
Yeah. What else do you guys want to say about the Spider-Verse? What else? What other thoughts
Let's see.
we got here?
I don't know. I would just like
Good.
clap for Mahershala Ali. Just as
Or we give the snaps around here.
yeah, we'll do both. It's
He's about to be Blade, which is apparently in production hell, but you know, he's gonna be Blade.
that's okay. He's gonna be such a good Blade.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
I'm jazzed.
Whether or not the movie around him as Blade is good is another question.
That's the
Yeah,
real question.
he's obviously going to be tremendous and wonderful, and I'm gonna be like, every time he's on screen. Because Mahershala Ali.
Wow. Okay.
I would just say this is up there, top 5 animations. I would say I would say that. You know,
I would say
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah, easily.
One of the
I
best
loved
animations I've ever
Arcane,
seen.
and I thought this was better.
Me too.
Like it's so good.
But you have to. Never mind.
No, I'm not particularly a big fan of Arcane. I did
What?
like this a lot though.
And I do think it can't be overstated. Like when Travis was talking about how the motion was animated. I mean, yeah, I think it was incredible. I mean, I think that's like the best animation that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Was the way that they animate, like, because it is not easy to somehow animate an acrobatic character and then multiply that by 6, because that's the number of Spider-Man you have plus the villains, and then make them all like move together and not be just, you know,
And-
nauseous and puke everywhere,
And have
or on the
everything
alternative, just
screen
make it seems
visually makes
unrealistic.
sense. It's
You know,
crazy.
So it was a big deal, and they said they were really inspired by the original cartoonist for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because that's what he did, is like
Yeah.
really put Spider-Man into some really weird poses that are very hard to draw that you normally wouldn't do at all.
Yeah, they took a lot of visual inspiration from like Jack Kirby with and all that kind of stuff. It's just Beautiful.
I'm excited to see their follow-up. I'm excited to see the second one.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm ready to see Oscar Isaacs as a Spider-Man.
There's been a lot of animations that do live up in the sequel, but I guess not a lot. There's not been, I can think of a few sequels that I think are just as good. Shrek 2, How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Oh, yeah.
Fire.
Fire.
That's about it.
That's about it.
That's all I'm coming.
Yeah,
It's gonna take me a while to think about
all the Shreks
animated
are fire.
sequels that I've seen.
All the Shreks are fire?
All the Shreks I've seen are fire. I have
Which
not,
ones have you seen?
the first three.
Okay.
Didn't they remaster the
guess.
first one or
I
something?
don't know.
I am probably, but all the Shreks I've seen are absolute fire. Even the third one, which I'm not gonna lie, going into it, I was like, this movie's gonna suck. There's baby donkey dragons, and I'm not signing up for
That's
that.
right.
But they aren't in it that much.
Kudos to Donkey for that. Just climbing up
Shrek
there,
1 and 2.
picking a spot and going to town.
Well,
What a
I'm
legend.
less impressed by Donkey than I am by Kingpin's wife, because that was a very petite lady. I don't know.
I mean,
I just don't know
Have you
the
seen-
physics behind that.
Have you seen The Mountain Wife?
No, but probably pretty similar situation.
Yeah, it's basically the same.
It's real
It's
life,
exactly the same.
that situation. It's a big difference.
Let's all have a moment of silence here. Jeremy, I'm gonna want you to find a picture of this and paste it in here when you do your edit. Just a
okay.
picture of
The mountain and his wife,
from
or
Game
of
of Thrones
Kingpin
standing
and-
next to his wife, and then a side by side the Kingpin and his wife, if you can find them standing next to each other somewhere.
Oh, I think there's a shot of him looking at a picture of him and his family in the movie.
Perfect. I want that
So-
side by side with a picture of the mountain and his wife. Maybe while I'm doing this whole
Let me tell you, it's gonna be really
explanation of
simple.
what I want.
I do love that, yeah.
Yeah, because it could be like in a heist
I
movie
will say-
where while we're talking about the plan starts happening.
It's so good.
So good.
And then we get to the twist
I will
part
say-
that's only for the audience.
As much as I love to leave Shriver as Wilson Fisk, he's not the best Wilson Fisk.
Vincent
In my
D'Onofrio?
opinion. Still,
No.
that to Vincent D'Onofrio, live action Daredevil.
Yeah.
What, you don't like
I mean, I
Michael
assume.
Clark
I mean, I want
Duncan
both.
in the other live
different
I
action
was just gonna
Daredevil?
say, are you sure you don't mean the one from the Ben Affleck Daredevil? Because that Kingpin absolutely slaps.
I've blotted it out.
Yeah. The
Huh?
rest of that movie is
Yeah, the rest
but
of
that Kingpin's not awful.
No, he's a good
like
Kingpin.
Kingpin is
Well, yeah, it's 'cause he's Michael Clark.
he's the least
Duncan.
bad part of that terrible film.
I think he's the only good part.
You mean the best
Yeah.
character ever isn't I never miss.
I was
And then he
imposed by
misses.
Colin.
I never miss. Like, the reason for his vendetta,
I never
the worst thing that's ever happened in his life was his miss one time,
Oh my god.
I mean, you really can't have that.
which he really didn't.
Like,
Can't have it.
I'm not gonna lie. Like when I rewatched that movie, I was like, everything about this is trash. But I just loved how into it Colin Farrell got.
Dude,
like, he was
Colin
just like,
Farrell-
I see.
Yeah.
He doesn't do halfway.
He's like,
Yeah.
he's like, I see what's happening.
He doesn't
here.
have
I'm gonna
it.
commit.
Yeah.
He goes full
120.
ass all day.
Colin Farrell is bullseye, and nobody can take.
I also forgot that was Colin Farrell.
that was Nick
That's
Cage
kind of
level
mind-blowing.
acting.
That's yeah.
Also, when they talked to Nicolas Cage for this part, he was doing his parts, right? And he wasn't actually dramatic enough. So they were having back and forth during the session, and then Nicolas Cage, I don't know, but they said Nicolas Cage said to me, quote, "Oh, so you want full Cage." And then he did the lines that
What
were
an absolute
He did it
legend.
full Cage. He knows who he is.
Yeah.
He knows.
"Oh, so you want
He knows.
full Cage."
Yeah.
I mean, he made.
So that's just something you can
He made it-
tell your significant other tonight.
he does that
give
anime
you
thing where it's like, this isn't even my final form.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah.
I'm only using 50% of my power.
He totally freezes them.
Yeah.
He thought that's
he
all they
made the
needed.
most. He made the most self-aware like actor comedy I've ever seen. Of course, he knows who he is.
Yeah.
Starring Pedro Pascal.
Still need to watch that.
Pedro Pascal month is coming.
Oh yeah, it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
We're talking
I
to his
believe
agents
that's
right now.
happening in May.
We're gonna get him on the show.
Pedro Pascal month. This is a real thing, everybody.
Tell your friends.
We are going to do an entire month of Pedro Pascal, including the book we're reading. We chose it only because it is a book
He
narrated by
reads it.
Pedro Pascal.
I know this sounds like a stupid joke, because it is, and we're doing it.
Well, it's stupid.
And we're gonna
But it's not a joke.
need fermented fiction fans to get Pedro on our show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Message him every day.
Any of you who know Pedro, shout out.
Yeah.
Go get it.
Get him.
Tell him he's got to come on over because we're doing a whole month in his honor. But before we do that, before we do Pedro Pascal month, we're going to finish this month in which we're honoring Black History, because this is Black History Month, which is, it's why we did the Spider-Verse, aside from the fact that the Spider-Verse is just super awesome.
Yeah.
But it is in honor of Black History Month. It's why we're drinking Metier, and it's why we're going to move on to next week's episode, wherein we're going to cover another awesome piece of film or literature from an African American creator. Travis, what else do you want to say before I?
We gotta rate.
How many beers?
Yeah, we're
Spider-Man.
gonna rate it. We're gonna rate it. It's time.
Okay.
Oh,
Let's do it. How many beers?
0 beers, because this is a kids movie.
No
You
beers?
should watch it sober.
0.
Watch
Okay.
Watch it sober, because it's a kids movie.
Wow. Okay, 0 beers from Travis. Colin.
This is a movie that you watch multiple times, and you need to have like 2-3 beers maybe, and you need to talk it up with your friends. I mean, ideally, like, it's Sunday, you're so hungover, and then someone's like, "Oh, you have Spider-Verse? Have you seen this? I haven't seen this." And you're like, "Oh, we're watching it right now."
Yeah.
And hair of the dog, buddy. Let's go.
Yes.
That sounds good.
Absolutely.
That sounds like a great way to do Spider-Verse.
So you drink however much you need to recover.
But for you,
I
it's
say 2 or 3.
Okay. So
Good beers.
Travis is correct. This is a kids movie, but I'm an adult. That's why I get to drink 2 brightly colored cocktails with this film for the maximum level of enjoyment.
All right.
I don't need to. I get to.
Boom. Yeah, I agree with the 2 to 3 beers.
Adult.
I like that. It's a plenty enjoyable movie without intoxication, but it's even a little more enjoyable if you just got that little nice level buzz going on.
Yeah.
And I think, and I do like your idea of watching it under those specific circumstances.
Yes.
They could be a perfect
You're like, I got to pee.
Recovery.
Pause it. I'll be right back. It's
Absolutely.
a movie that you pause.
You pause it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You pause.
No one's
it.
missing any of it.
No.
You don't want to.
Okay, I agree with all of you. I still stick to my, watch it with, the kid mindset, 0 beers. But 2 to 3 is a good amount. Do not get drunk, because even if you don't have like father issues, you might start to think you do.
Oh, that's true.
For sure.
Look, however
might
much
be
you
like-
drink, you're gonna cry harder at the sad parts.
Take a shot every time a significant other
Oh no.
of a Spider-Man dies. You're gonna get pretty drunk.
Yeah.
That's every origin story.
Yeah. I don't know what happens when you get the 3-frame backstory of 3 of the Spider-Man.
You gotta set
at the
down
same
3 of
time.
them puppies. The scene where the dad is at the door in his dorm, but
Oh,
he can't
God.
answer him. 'cause
Yeah.
he's got all covered in webs. So sad. All right, that's the Spider-Verse. I guess our average rating went out to like 2 to 3 beers. That's what we
It's up
rated.
there.
Which
Look out for the tier
rating
list.
system
This
is-
one's S tier, baby.
So much sense.
Our rating system is just absolute chaos, and that's what we love about it.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
All right. Are we taking 5? Because I need to take 5.
Hold on, I'm doing an outro.
Yeah, he's outroing.
Yeah. So we'll cut that out. All right.
Will we?
This has been another
Yeah.
episode. This has been another episode of Fermented Fiction. Thank you for tuning in. If you did, and if you didn't, well, why not? Do it.
Yeah,
in the
answer
future.
us
All
this
right?
question that you
Listen to
didn't
me.
give.
Hey,
Listen to me on this
Pedro.
podcast. Listen to Jeremy. Listen to Colin and listen to Travis. Come on over to Fermented Fiction and listen to us.
You don't have to listen to it, but you do have to click play and rate it 5 stars.
Yeah, you
And
can mute
subscribe.
it.
Yeah, you'll want to do that.
You know, click it and say that you're here and all that sort of thing.
But I do want to thank Pedro Pascal for listening to this episode, as he does with every episode.
Thank you, Pedro Pascal.
Thank
It's
you.
because of you that we do everything we do. Seriously, thank you to Special Brews for sponsoring the show. Thank you for Cascade Riders for having us as their podcast and for existing in general. Thank you, Colin, Jeremy, and Travis for coming to the show like you always do and recording and sitting around for, however long it takes to get everything rolling. Thanks for getting everything rolling, guys, every time. And again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Laters.